I'd do something a little different today. I'm going to be reading from the Audubon field guides, but instead of just choosing a species at random, I'm going to pick species that have some kind of meaning to me, based on places I've lived over the years and sort of memories I have of those places that are brought back to me because of these plants. So the first one is bear grass, Xerophyllum tenax. The alternate name is western turkey beard or Indian basket grass, and it's in the lily family. Description: many tiny flowers in a dense, broad white raceme, atop a stout stalk growing from a massive bunch of basal leaves. The leaves are about 1 to 2.5 feet long, very narrow and basal. It grows up to 5 feet high. The habitat is in open woods and clearings. Range is from British Columbia to Central California, east to Idaho and Montana. Discussion: Native Americans used the leaves to weave garments and baskets and ate the roasted rootstock. Other common names for this plant are squaw grass, elk grass, turkey beard, bear lily, and pine lily. It flowers from May to August. Petal-like segments are 6, each about 3/8 of an inch long and flat. So, bear grass is a plant that I saw a lot of when I was living in the mountains of central Idaho as a child. My parents were sort of frustrated hippies and went to live up there to kind of get away from civilization, just to sort of live off the land. And I would go hiking as a child, and there would always be these big clumps of bear grass. And I just thought they were so beautiful. They sort of look like fountains of grass, just coming up and surrounded by wildflowers. And I guess, I'm not sure why they're called bear grass, but there were a lot of bears where we lived, but I wasn't afraid of them. I saw them a few times, and they were very shy. As long as you weren't messing with their cubs, they'll leave you alone. So that's a very treasured memory I have. So next up is the American badger. Scientific name Taxidea taxus. In the family of weasels, otters. Description: flattish body, wider than high, with short bowed legs, shaggy coat grizzled gray to brown, short, bushy, yellowish tail, face dark brown or black with white cheeks. Narrow white stripe runs from above nose over head to nape. Snout pointed and slightly upturned. Ears small, feet dark with large foreclaws. The male is larger than the female. The wolverine is larger, bulkier, and browner and lacks facial stripes. The habitat is open plains and prairies, farmland, and sometimes edges of woods. Ranges in the western U.S., east to East Texas, Oklahoma, North Missouri, North Illinois, North Indiana and North Ohio, north to South British Columbia, much of Alberta, South Manitoba, and South Saskatchewan. Range appears to be increasing. It mates July through August. Implantation delayed until February. It has a litter of 1 to 5 young, born March through April. Well-furred but blind at birth, the young are weaned by June. Discussion: this powerful burrower is basically nocturnal but is often active by day, waddling about and occasionally moving at a clumsy trot. Its home range varies from 590 to 4,200 acres. The home range of the male is larger and encompasses the ranges of several females. Although primarily terrestrial, the American badger swims and even dives, and on hot days sprawls in shallow water to cool off. It buries buries its droppings and cleans itself frequently, swallowing loose hair licked from its coat. Although the badger does not hibernate, it may become torpid in the coldest part of winter, remaining in a nest chamber deep within its burrow for several days or weeks. Adapted to feed mainly on small burrowing mammals, especially ground squirrels, pocket gophers, rats, and mice, which it usually digs out of the ground. A badger can destroy the burrows of an entire ground squirrel colony. This carnivore often forages by visiting its abandoned dens, as potential prey will frequently use them, and it may dig up hibernating animals. Occasionally, a badger will dig itself into an inhabited burrow and await the occupant's return. A coyote sometimes watches attentively as the badger digs for prey and may steal the rodent as it pops from an escape exit, but the coyote and badger do not truly hunt together. Fond of rattlesnake meat, the badger is evidently unharmed by the venom unless the snake strikes its nose. Okay, so there's a lot more here, but I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. Basically, badgers are, they're kind of nasty little creatures. I've actually never seen one in the wild. I've only seen them in zoos. But the reason I chose this one was because it reminded me of going to school in Wisconsin, where I was a badger. And I really love the Midwest. I find it was so different than where I grew up. It was so flat and so green. And I have a lot of wonderful memories of Wisconsin. I actually enjoyed the winters more than the summers. The summers were really humid. But the winters are very intense in the Midwest. Lots of snow and ice and cold. But I used to walk in the wintertime along the shores of Lake Monona in Madison, and the lakes would freeze over in the wintertime, and the ice would sort of creak and groan, and Lake Monona is probably most well known because in the 60s, the singer Otis Redding was on a plane to Madison, and it crashed into the lake and killed him. So it's always been sort of haunted that way. Otis Redding rules, by the way. So I used to walk along and just, I don't know, I sort of like, I would hear the ice making noise, and I would kind of wonder, it seemed rather ghostly. But I also had a lot of wonderful memories there with my friends. We would go and get sticky buns at the farmer's market on weekends, and then go out driving into the countryside of Wisconsin and sort of visit these small towns and go to strange bars. Okay, so next up is the Pacific madrone tree. The scientific name is Arbutus menziesii. I'm sure I'm mangling that. And the description is, it's in the heath family. Alternate name is Oregon laurel or laurelwood. notice when it glides in a long, undulating flight. Back is dull brown, underparts light gray. No crest, dusky face mask. White throat offset by incomplete blue necklace. It lives in scrub oak, woodlands, and chaparral, but does not breed in low scrub because it needs watch posts. Also inhabits suburban gardens. Resident from Washington, Wyoming, and Colorado south to Texas, also in Mexico. Like all jays, this species may be secretive and silent around its nest or while perching in a treetop in early morning, but is frequently noisy and conspicuous. Scrub jays often eat the eggs or young of other birds, but in summer they are mainly insectivorous. These birds also eat acorns and have been described as uphill planters, counterbalancing the tendency of acorns to bounce or roll downhill. The jay buries many more acorns than they consume and help regenerate oak forests that have been destroyed by fire or drought. Nesting, 3 to 6 eggs spotted on darker greenish or reddish base in a twiggy nest well hidden in a tree or dense shrub. So I chose this one because it's a very common bird where I live, and I kind of take them for granted, but they're a very pretty shade of blue. And when I have people who are not from this area and they see this bird for the first time, they think it's like just so amazing and colorful, and so, you know, it's either common or spectacular depending on your perspective.